The empire was old. It had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. In all that time, no enemy had challenged them and survived. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had destroyed civilizations that dared to fight back. They were the greatest hunters the galaxy had ever known. But greatness breeds boredom. Lord sat on his throne aboard the flagship Eternal Blade. He was tired, not physically tired, but tired in his soul. There were no more worthy enemies, no more great hunts. The galaxy had learned to fear and fear made everything predictable. His advisors brought him reports of distant worlds. Most were empty rocks. Some had primitive life. None offered anything interesting. Then they showed him Earth. The blue planet orbited a small yellow star at the edge of the galaxy. It was full of life. Millions of species lived there, and one species had built cities and machines. They called themselves humans. Lord watched the recordings his scouts had made. He saw human cities with their tall buildings. He saw their primitive aircraft and their simple weapons. He saw them living their small lives, completely unaware that death was watching from the stars. "How advanced are they?" he asked. "They have nuclear weapons," his advisor said. "Basic space travel, nothing that could threaten us." Lord smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Perfect," he said. "Begin the." There was the great hunt. It was this favorite tradition. They would choose a primitive world and hunt its inhabitants for sport. The entire empire would watch. Nobles would place bets on which cities would fall first. How many would die in the opening strike? How long until total extinction? It was entertainment, nothing more. 17 warships descended toward Earth on a quiet Tuesday morning. They came through the clouds like gods of death. Their hulls were black and covered with weapons. Each ship was 5 kilometers long. They did not send a warning. They did not ask for surrender. Hunters do not negotiate with prey. Ayres was the first city to die. They fired a single plasma beam from orbit. It struck the city center at noon. The temperature at the impact point reached the same heat as the surface of a star. Everything within 10 kilometers simply stopped existing. Buildings, cars, trees, people, all of it turned to ash in less than a second. 3 million humans died before they could scream. The broadcasts began immediately. Cameras on every ship recorded the destruction. Commentators discussed the attack with excitement. Viewers across the empire watched and cheered. Mumbai was next, then Lagos, then. The humans tried to fight back. They launched their missiles and sent their jets into the sky. None of it mattered. The ships had shields that could stop nuclear weapons. Human bullets were like rain against a mountain. Within 72 hours, 19 million humans were dead. They had not lost a single soldier. Lord watched the feeds from his throne. He sipped a drink and smiled at the chaos below. The humans were running and screaming. They were trying to hide in mountains and underground shelters. Some were praying to their gods. "They are entertaining," he admitted, "better than the last hunt." His officers laughed and agreed. The last species they had hunted had given up too quickly. These humans kept fighting even when it was hopeless. That made it more fun. But something was happening that they did not notice. In a basement in Geneva, a woman named Sarah stared at a computer screen. Her daughter had been in Mumbai visiting family. Now her daughter was gone, ash on the wind, nothing left to bury. Sarah was a physicist. She had spent her life studying how the universe worked. Now she had a new purpose. She would understand how they worked, and she would find a way to make them pay. She was not alone. Across the burning world, other survivors were doing the same thing. Military officers who had lost their bases, engineers who had lost their families, scientists who had lost everything. They started talking to each other through whatever communication networks still existed. They shared information. They analyzed every piece of data they could find about the alien ships. They made this easy. They broadcast everything. They were so confident in their power that they did not hide their technology. Their shield frequencies were in the feeds. Their weapon systems were visible to anyone watching. They were showing off like hunters posing with dead animals. They never imagined that the animals were taking notes. In Russia, a general named made contact with his American counterpart. They had been enemies for decades. Their countries had aimed nuclear weapons at each other for generations. "None of that matters now," General said. "We have a new enemy." The American agreed. Within hours, the two military forces were sharing everything they knew. Chinese intelligence joined them. British, French, Indian, Israeli, every surviving military force on Earth began working together. It was unprecedented. Humanity had never been united before. It had taken the near extinction of their species to make it happen. In the skies above Earth, they continued their hunt. They destroyed military bases with casual precision. They fired on refugee convoys for sport. They competed with each other to see who could achieve the highest kill count. Lord received reports every hour. The humans were dying on schedule. Their military was broken. Their governments were in chaos. Everything was going perfectly. "How long until total extinction?" he asked. "At current rates, approximately 3 months, his advisor said, "though we could accelerate if you wish." "No," Lord said, "let it last. The viewers are enjoying this." He leaned back in his throne and closed his eyes. This hunt was exactly what he had needed. A nice, long slaughter to break the boredom. He did not know that beneath his feet, in bunkers and basements and hidden facilities, the prey was changing. Humanity was learning, adapting, preparing. They had stopped running. Now they were planning. And when they finished planning, they would show the something that the great empire had never seen before. A prey species that could bite back. Dr. Sarah had not slept in 11 days. She survived on coffee and grief. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her daughter's face. Every time she opened them, she saw alien shield frequencies scrolling across her screen. She was going to crack their technology. She was going to find their weakness, and then she was going to watch them burn. Sarah worked in what remained of CERN, the great physics laboratory in Switzerland. Half of it was destroyed. The other half was full of scientists like her, people who had lost everything and had nothing left but their minds. They called themselves the Ghost Network. They communicated through hidden channels. They shared data across continents. They worked together even as the world burned around them. They made their job easy. The aliens broadcast everything. They were proud of their technology. They wanted the galaxy to see how powerful they were. Every shot, every kill, every tactical move was recorded and transmitted for entertainment. They never imagined their prey was watching too. "Look at this," Sarah said to her colleague, a German engineer named. She pointed at a pattern in the data. "Every 4.7 minutes their shields cycle through a reset. There is a gap, only 2 seconds, but it is there." Stared at the screen. His hands were shaking. He had lost his wife and sons in the Berlin strike. 2 seconds, he whispered. "Can we hit them in 2 seconds?" "We can try." The information spread through the Ghost Network within hours. From Geneva to Tokyo, from Cape Town to Toronto, scientists and engineers began working on the problem. They did not have alien technology. They did not have advanced weapons, but they had something they did not expect. They had human creativity. A team in Japan figured out how to modify missile guidance systems to track the alien ships more precisely. A group in Brazil discovered that certain electromagnetic frequencies could disrupt sensors. Engineers in India designed a coordination system that could synchronize attacks across the globe to the millisecond. Meanwhile, the military was transforming. General sat in an underground bunker in the mountains. Around him were screens showing feeds from every surviving military force on Earth. American generals, Chinese admirals, British commanders, they were all working together now. "We need to stop thinking like enemies," said. "We need to become one army." It was not easy. Decades of distrust did not disappear overnight. But the alternative was extinction. That made cooperation simple. They shared their weapons. They shared their intelligence. They shared their soldiers. For the first time in human history, the entire species was fighting as one. They noticed none of this. Lord continued his hunt with casual pleasure. His ships destroyed targets around the clock. His hunters landed on the surface to chase refugees through ruins. They recorded everything for the viewers back home. "The humans are resilient," one of his officers observed. "They keep hiding, they keep fighting. Most species surrender by now." "That makes it more entertaining," Lord said. "Let them run, let them hope. The longer they resist, the final victory." He was so confident, so certain of his power. He had hunted 100 worlds. None had ever threatened him. None had ever made him doubt. That was about to change. The first coordinated strike happened near Sydney, Australia. The gunship Crimson Fang was patrolling the coast, firing on survivor camps for sport. Its crew was relaxed. They had faced no real resistance in weeks. They did not see the attack coming. 300 kilometers away, a team of Australian soldiers watched their screens. They had one chance. The timing had to be perfect. "Shield gap in 30 seconds, the technician said. "All units confirm ready," the commander ordered. Across the region, hidden batteries prepared to fire. Modified missiles waited in their launchers. Every weapon was linked to the same targeting computer. Everything depended on hitting the exact same spot at the exact same moment. "Shield gap in 10 seconds. The soldiers held their breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. Every weapon launched at once. The missiles screamed across the sky. They converged on the Crimson Fang from 6 different directions. The gunship's shields flickered, and in that 2-second gap, death arrived. The missiles punched through. They struck the hull in a perfect pattern. The ship's reactor exploded. The Crimson Fang broke apart in a ball of fire and crashed into the ocean. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the cheering started. Footage of the burning wreck spread across Earth's surviving networks. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had destroyed an enemy ship. It was 1 ship out of 17. It was a tiny victory, but it was proof. The Kudai. Lord watched the footage with narrow eyes. His officers were nervous. This had never happened before. "A lucky shot," Lord said finally. "Nothing more, increase patrols, find whoever did this and kill them." He did not order a tactical review. He did not ask how the humans had timed their attacks so perfectly. He did not consider the possibility that his prey was learning faster than any species he had ever hunted. His arrogance blinded him. On Earth, the Ghost Network was already analyzing the attack. They knew what worked. They knew how to make it work better, and they were sharing that knowledge with everyone who could fight. Sarah watched the footage of the burning ship. She did not smile. Her grief was too deep for joy, but she felt something else. "Purpose." "1 down," she said quietly. 16 to go. In bunkers across the world, scientists and soldiers were thinking the same thing. They had proven they could be hurt. Now they would prove they could be destroyed. The hunt was not over, but for the first time, no one was sure who was the hunter and who was the prey. 3 months after the first alien ship fell, humanity created something new, something terrible, something necessary. They called it the Prometheus Protocol. Deep in the Andes Mountains of South America, engineers worked in a hidden facility carved from solid rock. They had been building in secret while the world burned. They had stolen technology from crashed ships. They had combined it with human innovation. And they had created a weapon that would change the galaxy forever. Admiral James stood in the construction bay and looked up at the ship. It was ugly by any standard. It was welded together from scrap metal and alien components. Its hull was covered in patches and repairs. It looked like something built in a junkyard. But it was armed with weapons designed for one purpose only. Not to win battles, not to capture territory, to annihilate. "Is it ready?" Admiral asked. "It will fly," the chief engineer said. "It will fight. Beyond that, I make no promises." Admiral nodded. He had lost his entire family in the Lagos strike. His wife, his children, his parents, his brothers and sisters, everyone he loved was gone. He had nothing left except the burning need to make the enemy pay. "Good enough," he said. The first Prometheus-class warship launched from the hidden facility on a cloudy morning. It rose through the atmosphere on stolen alien engines. It passed the patrol lines using stolen alien stealth technology. And when it reached orbit, it sent a message to every surviving human on Earth. "We are no longer prey," the message said. "We are the response." The High Command did not take the message seriously at first. One primitive ship against an empire that spanned thousands of worlds. It was laughable. Then the ship attacked. Lord's flagship, the Eternal Blade, was orbiting Earth when the Prometheus found it. The great ship's sensors detected something approaching, but the readings made no sense. The object was too small to be a threat. Its power signature was weak. It looked like debris. The weapons officer dismissed it. That was a fatal mistake. The Prometheus closed to point-blank range before revealing itself. Its weapons fired directly into the Eternal Blade's engine section. The shots were perfectly aimed, striking the exact points where the reactor connected to the power grid. The explosion tore the great ship in half. Lord survived only because he was in a shielded command center. He escaped in a pod while his flagship burned behind him. For the first time in his long life, he understood that he was facing something he had never encountered before. An enemy that knew exactly how to kill him. The Prometheus did not stop. It hunted the remaining ships with relentless precision. It struck without warning and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Within a month, 7 more ships had been destroyed. They called for help. They sent messages to their home system describing the threat. They requested reinforcements. They demanded that the full power of the Empire be sent to crush these primitive humans. The Empire responded. 50 warships began the journey to Earth. They would arrive in 6 months. They would bring enough firepower to sterilize the entire planet. But humanity was not waiting. The Ghost Network had evolved into something larger. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock. New Prometheus ships were built in facilities across the globe. Each one was better than the last. Each one carried deadlier weapons. Each one was crewed by survivors who had nothing left to lose. Admiral commanded the growing fleet. He met with his officers in a bunker beneath the ruins of New York. "We have a choice," he said. "We can wait for their reinforcements to arrive. We can fight them here and probably die, or we can do something no prey species has ever done." He pointed at a star map showing the Empire. "We can attack them first." The room was silent. The officers looked at the map. They saw hundreds of worlds. They saw an empire that had existed for 12,000 years, and they saw their tiny fleet of ugly, patched-together ships. "It would be suicide," someone said. "Maybe," Admiral replied. "But consider what happens if we win, not just survive, but win completely. We destroy their fleet. We shatter their empire. We make an example so terrible that no species will ever attack Earth again." He looked at his officers with cold eyes. "They killed our children for entertainment. They broadcast our deaths for fun. I say we return the favor." One by one, the officers nodded. They had all lost family. They had all watched their world burn. They were not interested in proportional response. They were not interested in peace treaties or negotiations. They wanted annihilation. Lord received reports of the human fleet preparation. He was no longer smiling. He was no longer treating this as sport, but he still did not understand what he was facing. They fought for glory. They fought for entertainment. They fought because fighting was what predators did. Humans were different. Humans did not fight for glory. They did not fight for entertainment. They fought because something had hurt what they loved, and when that happened, they did not stop until the threat was utterly destroyed. The Prometheus fleet launched toward space. 12 ships against an empire. It was madness. It was hopeless. It was exactly what humanity needed. On the lead ship, Admiral sent one final transmission back to Earth. "We are coming for them," he said, "and we will not stop until every last one of them learns what happens when you hunt humanity." The stars waited. The Empire waited. And death flew toward them on ugly ships built by a species that had learned the most dangerous lesson any civilization can learn. How to hate. The first border world fell in 3 days. Admiral had studied his enemy carefully. He knew their tactics. He knew their weaknesses. He knew that they had never faced a species that refused to stop fighting. The colony of Prime was a military outpost on the edge of space. It had shields and weapons and a garrison of 10,000 soldiers. It was designed to repel any threat. It was not designed for what humanity brought. The human fleet arrived without warning. They did not announce themselves. They did not demand surrender. They simply attacked. The orbital defenses lasted 4 hours. Human weapons punched through shields and armor with surgical precision. Every shot was aimed at critical systems. Every attack was coordinated to maximize destruction. When the defenses fell, the human ground forces landed. They were soldiers who had survived the burning of Earth. They had watched their families die. They had crawled through ruins and buried their dead in mass graves. They did not take prisoners. The battle for Prime was brutal. The garrison fought back with everything they had. They were experienced warriors. They had conquered worlds, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not retreat when injured. They did not surrender when outnumbered. They kept coming until they won or died, and there was something in their eyes that terrified even the bravest soldier. Cold, burning hatred. When the battle ended, no soldiers remained alive on the planet. The surviving civilians were gathered and given a simple message. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them we are coming. The civilians were released. They fled toward the core worlds, carrying stories of unstoppable human warriors who fought with mechanical efficiency and terrifying silence. The Galactic Council received reports of the attack within days. They had been watching the situation at Earth with interest. They had seen the broadcasts of the hunt. They had expected humanity to become extinct like so many other species. They had not expected this. The humans have crossed into space, the council chairman announced. They appear to be conducting an invasion. Impossible, an ambassador protested. They are primitives. They do not have the technology to threaten us. They have destroyed your border outpost. They are advancing toward your core systems. Perhaps you should reconsider your assessment. The ambassador had no response. The council debated what to do. Some members wanted to intervene. Others wanted to wait and see. But one thing was clear to everyone: something unprecedented was happening. A hunted species was fighting back, and they were winning. Admiral pushed his fleet deeper into enemy territory. More ships had joined him, new Prometheus-class vessels built in the months since the invasion began. His fleet now numbered 27 ships. It was still nothing compared to the full power of the Empire, but the Empire was spread across thousands of worlds. It would take months to gather a fleet large enough to stop the human advance, and every day the humans grew stronger. They captured technology, they studied it, they improved it. Human engineers worked constantly, finding new ways to make their weapons more deadly. Every battle taught them something new. Lord gathered what forces he could. He assembled a fleet of 60 ships, the largest he could find on short notice, and moved to intercept the human advance. The two fleets met in the system, named after the ancient word for glory. It was fitting. This battle would determine the fate of an empire. Lord expected a conventional engagement, ships facing ships, weapons against weapons, the kind of battle that had fought for thousands of years. Humanity had other plans. The human fleet scattered as they approached. They split into small groups and disappeared into the asteroid fields that surrounded the system. Lord tried to pursue, but his ships were too large, too slow. They were built for overwhelming force, not for chasing shadows. Then the attacks began. Human ships struck from hidden positions. They hit vessels and vanished before anyone could respond. They targeted engines, weapons, shield generators, always the critical systems. They never stood and fought when they could run and ambush. It was not glorious, it was not honorable, it was brutally effective. In 3 weeks of fighting, Lord lost 30 ships. Humanity lost 4. The surviving fleet retreated. It was the first time in recorded history that a force had fled from battle. The news spread across the Empire like wildfire. On the core worlds, panic was beginning. The broadcasts that had once shown humans dying for entertainment now showed soldiers dying in the same way. The hunt had reversed. The prey had become the predator. The council sent an envoy to the human fleet. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted to understand. They wanted to know what it would take to end this war. Admiral met the envoy in person. He was a tall man with gray in his hair and coldness in his eyes. He listened to the envoy's words without expression. "The council is concerned," the envoy said. "This conflict is destabilizing the entire region. We would like to facilitate a peace agreement." "Did the council try to stop when they attacked Earth?" Admiral asked. The envoy hesitated. "The council does not intervene in hunting traditions, the have." "Did you try to stop them?" "No." Admiral nodded slowly. "Then we have nothing to discuss." The envoy was sent away. The human fleet continued its advance. The galaxy watched in silence. They were beginning to understand something important. Humanity was not fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to send a message written in fire and blood, a message that would echo through history for 1,000 years. Do not attack Earth. Do not hunt humanity, or everything you have built will burn, or Prime was the heart of the Empire. It was a world of ancient cities and towering monuments. Billions of citizens lived there. The great families of the Empire had called it home for 12,000 years. It burned for 3 days. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the destruction below. His fleet had broken through the final defenses. The great orbital stations were debris. The mighty defense platforms were silent wreckage. The proud Navy existed only as scattered survivors fleeing into deep space. The Empire was finished. Lord requested a meeting. He came aboard the human flagship alone, walking through corridors filled with soldiers who had every reason to kill him. He entered the bridge with his head held high, trying to maintain the dignity of a fallen conqueror. "I come to discuss terms," Lord said. Admiral did not turn to face him. He continued watching the burning cities on the planet below. "There are no terms," he said. "We can offer reparations, territory, technology, whatever you want, just stop the destruction." Now Admiral turned. His eyes were empty, not angry, not satisfied, just empty. "You attacked our world for entertainment," he said. "You killed our children for sport. You broadcast their deaths to amuse your citizens. There is nothing you can offer that would change what you did." "Then what do you want?" "I want your empire to end. I want your military to cease to exist. I want every species in the galaxy to look at what remains of thee and understand what happens when someone attacks humanity." Lord stared at him. For the first time, he truly understood what he was facing. This was not revenge. This was not anger. This was cold, calculated destruction. Humanity was not trying to win a war. They were trying to make an example that would last forever. "You would destroy us completely." "No," Admiral said. "We are not murderers like you. Your civilians will survive. Your species will continue. But you will never threaten anyone again. Your warships will be destroyed. Your weapons will be taken. Your empire will become scattered survivors on distant worlds, starting over from nothing." He stepped closer to Lord. "Just like we had to do after you attacked Earth." Lord was taken away. He would spend the rest of his long life on a primitive world, watching the stars he could no longer reach. He would die old and forgotten, the last high of a dead empire. The destruction of the took 3 more months. Human forces moved systematically through their territory. Every warship was destroyed. Every military base was dismantled. Every weapon was taken or wrecked. The civilians were left alone. Humanity was not interested in genocide. They were not trying to exterminate a species. They were trying to remove a threat forever. When it was done, the scattered survivors numbered in the billions. They lived on 100 different worlds, stripped of their technology, starting over from nothing. Some would eventually rebuild simple societies. Others would fade into history, but none would ever threaten the galaxy again. The war was over. Admiral returned to Earth. The planet was still from the invasion. Ruined cities stood as monuments to the dead. Radiation zones marked where nuclear strikes had fallen, but life was returning. People were rebuilding. Humanity was recovering. The United Earth Assembly gathered to mark the end of the war. Leaders from every nation attended. The ceremony was held in the ruins of Airs, where the first strike had fallen. It was a reminder of what had started everything. Admiral stood before the assembly. He was not a politician. He did not give pretty speeches. But the assembly wanted him to speak, so he spoke. 4 years ago, we were attacked by an empire that saw us as animals to be hunted. They killed millions of our people for entertainment. They expected us to die screaming for their amusement. He paused, looking at the representatives from every corner of Earth. Instead, we destroyed them, not because we wanted to, not because we enjoyed it, but because it was necessary, because we had to show the galaxy that humanity will not be prey. His voice grew harder. Every species out there is watching us now, every empire, every civilization. They saw what they did to us, and they saw what we did in response. They know now that attacking Earth has consequences. Not proportional consequences, not measured responses, total annihilation. The assembly was silent. They had all lost someone in the war. They had all seen the cost of victory. There was no celebration in this moment, only grim satisfaction. "We will not strike first," Admiral continued. "We will not conquer. We will not hunt other species for sport. We are not but we will defend ourselves with everything we have. Any species that attacks our world or our people will face the same fate as the. This is not a threat, it is a promise." He stepped back from the podium. "The galaxy has learned what humanity is capable of. Let them never forget." The speech was broadcast across the stars. Every civilization in the galaxy received it. The Galactic Council received it. Ancient empires and young colonies alike received it. And they all understood. Earth was no longer a primitive world on the edge of nowhere. It was a warning, a reminder of what happened when peaceful species were pushed too far. The little blue planet had proven something that would echo through history. Humanity could be kind, they could be generous, they could be the greatest friends a species could hope for. But if you hurt them, if you killed their children and burned their cities and hunted them for sport, they would not stop until you were utterly destroyed. For the next 1,000 years, no one troubled Earth. Ships from other civilizations visited peacefully, trade agreements were signed, friendships were formed. Humanity joined the galactic community as respected members. But in the quiet moments in the history lessons taught to young aliens, the story of the was always told. How they attacked Earth for sport, how they expected easy prey, and how humanity responded with total annihilation. Some lessons once taught are never forgotten,